things that have been always hand to hand. However, since the 21st century began, the priority apparently changed. President Andrés Pastrana government set a precedent on the main importance of the Colombian economy. It was the use of hydrocarbons instead of agro-export model. At first, it seemed to be good for the economy's development and industrialization of the country. However, now new solutions to have more extraction have been created. One of them is fracking. And it is something that started in the US and now it can arrive to our country. The problem is about the insecurities of this to the environment, because it is clear that the ambition of the exploitation of non-renewable resources has led to this situation becoming a current Colombian factual issue, and it is something that we as a country must worry about. We need to care about the environment. First of all, fracking is a process which definition means hydraulic fracture, which consists of the extraction of oil that is inside the rocks of a lot of depth through the injection of water under pressure. The problem of this is that these rocks are in such a depth that the water needs to be mixed with toxics and chemicals that make the water use a huge loss, because then it cannot be purified. For this to be carried in good shape, research has been done in the United States. Nevertheless, in Colombia, it is intended to perform fracking with the same research, without taking into account that the geographic and topographic changes that exist in both countries are really big.
So now, as we already said, fracking is a method that was the extraction of oil, but this method is actually used since the 50s in the United Kingdom. Other countries such as the United States have implemented it and have achieved a large scale of exploitation. Then, in a national context, Colombian Association of Petroleum Engineers says that the country has been preparing for this implementation 10 years ago. This shows that it's not a method that has been planned a short time ago. Our government has been preparing for several years, and because of this consequence that bring all of this implementation of the exploitation of fracking, this decision has to be slowly decided. A professor of the National University, Carlos Vargas, tells us that the word used during fracking clearly cannot be used of anything else because of the contamination that it generates, and must be treated because of it. But the government is aware of this, and as the director of the environmental movement, Carlos Prieto, said, there are 700 research groups in the world, and 87% said that there is a risk for the people and the population near the point of realization of fracking. So, this concludes that fracking causes health problems to people, and some of these consequences are the respiratory illnesses, the hormonal problems, and finally this become a public health problem. Finally, the government just considered this because Colombia shows reserve of 1665 million barrels reserves of oil, and estimates indicate that with the realization of fracking will increment a lot and become 24,000 and 74,000 millions of barrels of oil. But finally, the question for this is it really necessary to extract this big amount of oil, and knowing all the bad consequences that bring this bad method using for other countries in our country?
According to the government, the main purpose of fracking practice is to generate oil production in enormous quantities, and also to produce more resources for us to spend them. However, the consequences are being ignored, since environmental issues are effectively behind and totally forgotten. Oil companies aren't helping you through their support by the government, and obviously they won't think twice their decisions. Some possible solutions or measures that could be taken to improve or solve this impact that fracking generates are number one, the long lasting of this water, reduce them. Second one, the depth of excavation must be sustainable. Third one, the non-exploitation on virgin lands. Fourth one, avoid prohibit invasive intervention. Number five, make sure that the surface of the platform are regulated. Number six, rigorous checks to avoid gases escaping into the atmosphere. Reduce the volume of water and sand. Rescue or relocate the affected species so they don't get extinct. With these measures, the realization of fracking could remarkably reduce the massive impacts that it has on our ecosystem. So, if we had been more aware of the damages of fracking, we wouldn't have to look for solutions to environmental issues. And if we will have implemented the fracking by the time that water cannot be used again. Thank you.
It is not really relevant to do this process in Colombia because it would affect in a really negative way the environment. Also, most of the studies that have been done apply for the United States, so let me explain you something. If we compare the United States environmental resources and the Colombian environmental resources, we are going to see that we have a lot of differences. So, that means that the results of these studies are not 100% valid in Colombia. In addition to this, in the government campaigns, there is always people saying that fracking is not going to be carried out, but it is always done. So we can put in a lot of, doubt the credibility of our government. Also, if we think Colombia is a really rich country in biodiversity, so if we apply this process, not only the environment is going to be affected in a negative way, it is going to be affecting also many people, because if we contaminate the hydraulic sources of the country, a lot of people are going to get sick, mostly of cancer, because of all the substances that this process leaves behind. So we have to stop for a minute and worry about our country, because if no one worry about it, who is it going to worry then? We have to get reunited like a country and fight for this together.